All right, welcome back to the Tad Lowe Show with me, Tad the Day Coach, and my co-host Nigel Lomax. Hey, Nigel, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good. How about you?
Good, man. Good. We've got our schedule together this week, and we're recording again, so that's awesome. We both have
That
conflicting schedules sometimes, but busy stuff. Most people don't know. I think you do project management, right?
I am. I'm a project manager, IT for a pharmaceutical company. Pharmaceutical research company. So I have to actually go into an office now, where I used to work remotely, and I could just do this anytime I wanted to. But I actually have to get into a suit and tie and be like normal people.
Wow, gosh, that
Can't
sucks.
I
Being like,
can't walk around with my because I used to walk around in my pajamas and do conference calls, and now I can't do that. So
people, and I've had the luxury of working from home and doing all of my my work, pretty much as I see fit, arrange my own schedule and so forth. I've done that for years because I've done this for so long. And but people used to always ask me, and they still do at times. Oh, you probably work in your pajamas and stuff. I said nope. So I have a morning. I've always had a morning process. I've always believed, at least this is just for me. I'm not saying everybody else has to do this because I know a lot of people who have the kind of job that I have where they work from home and they definitely want to work, on the couch and they're with their laptop and their pajamas, really comfortable, which is great. But I just have this thing where like I get up, I make my bed, I have a morning routine, and then I get dressed, I get myself ready, and I start my day. And I have to have my shoes on, I have to have my clothes. I got to be ready, I gotta feel like I'm in the energy flow of my work, so to speak. I want to feel like I want to, get up and be in an office, even though I don't want to go to an office. I have my office that I go to. When I enter the doors of my office, it's like I turn the switch on, I turn myself on in work mode, and then when I leave my office, there's a big part of me that kind of shuts off. I still have to interact, like at shows and when I'm out and about, responding to people's messages and stuff, and I do that. But there's a part of me that wants to sort of power down for the day when I leave my office after I'll typically spend 10 to easily 10 hours a day working. And I will power down part of my brain, so to speak, when I leave that office. It's just sort of a ritual for me. I think for me, it's healthy.
That's weird because I'm a routine sort of guy, so it doesn't really matter what day of the week it is. I'll always wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I'll always make my bed before I start the day. I always, there's certain things that I always do, and it doesn't vary except for during Shabbat. During Shabbat, it varies, but other than that, Monday through Friday before dark, it doesn't vary at all. So, it wasn't really that big of a hardship going into the office. I think I'm productive no matter where I am, if I'm in the office or at home. I think that my social skills are better when I'm in the office, though, because I think that's what people miss out on is not so much that they're more productive or not productive. I think they miss out on the fact of using their social skills. And I would argue that possibly, and arguing with, but I would venture to say that that's possibly what's wrong with the culture right now is the fact that people do not know how to interact with people civilly, and therefore they just kind of blow up because they're used to doing it on the internet, where no one can actually see their faces or tell them off, or, there's not really any repercussion. You can be as anonymous as you possibly can, but when you're in front of people 24/7 or, for 8 hours a day, then you have to gauge people's, feelings and, take them into account and, see what works for them and what works for you. There's more of a compromise. There's more of a dance of humanity where it isn't so much on the internet.
Well, yeah, I think kind of funny you say that. I used to have this conversation to a certain degree with my brother. I have a twin brother, as everybody knows. Most people who know me. And he has two boys. And when they were born, I remember he talked about homeschooling. And when my daughter was born, I talked to him about it because I knew he considered it. And he's a teacher. He's a professor at University of Washington, soon to be at Arizona State as an assistant dean next year. So he'll be changing locales. But he felt very strongly, especially with his children, that the social interactions in schools was vital to their education, and I kind of felt the same way too. But then and so when I talked to him, we kind of discussed that. We kind of agreed. And then several years later, one of our nannies who still watches my daughter today, she was homeschooled, and then I knew other people that were homeschooled, and all the kids that I knew have known now who have become adults who were homeschooled. Really, now it could have been their situations because obviously you can homeschool in many different ways, and it's the emphasis of the parents who are homeschooling that will provide most of the education and the social interactions. But they didn't seem to really lack anything. But they all were wonderful students. They were all very, very highly educated from the standpoint they went to college. They did really well. They accomplished those educational goals, which was great. So from an educational standpoint, I think that, and from a work standpoint, if we relate this to work, the work environment, and social interactions, I absolutely agree with you that we had, like, it's really fascinating to see this, that you can get a lot done, you can be very productive, but there is something that is to be said for how we live in this world. Like, I think getting a lot done, being productive are great goals, and they're wonderful, but there's also another goal that I think you're highlighting on, and that is the goal of providing that social interaction in our life that does give us value. Not only for the workplace, not only for our personal lives, but just as us as human beings, because we're not solitary creatures. We're not like the owl who sits up in a tree all night, hunting its prey. We're people. We're social creatures. We're social creatures, and if psychology tells the same thing, and sociology tells the same thing, it tells us that when people get isolated, as a matter of fact, one of the worst things you could do to a prisoner in federal prison is put them in solitary, right? Because they're isolated, and it's like, they'd rather be in general population. They'd rather be out there socializing with other people, even if it is bad social interaction. It's at least some social interaction, and we do get something from it. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, the other thing is that you get something from different perspectives of people. So, of course, we came from a weekend that was a pretty horrible week, and especially, to the Jewish community. And I happen to be part of the Jewish community. It was a horrific week, but it's one of those things where you have to realize what society are we building right now? Are we building a society in which people do not want to interact with each other at all? And if we are social creatures, then, we are inquisitive by nature about other people. But if we become isolationists, which some people in small fringes of population want to be, obviously, then what kind of human race will we be, or what kind of society will we be? And that's one of the reasons why I don't think that there's enough interaction that's done. And that might be a problem with technology. It might be a problem with how people are being parented and everything. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that everybody is getting information digitally instead of actually talking to the person who's next door to you.
Right.
Because I work with a lot of people from different backgrounds and with different ethnicities and different religions and everything else. My boss is Hindu, and I happen to be Jewish. And yesterday we were talking because I gave her a hollow loaf, because it was Shabbat. And she said, yeah, my kids go to the JCC when we lived in Michigan, and she wanted to know where the JCC was because she wanted her kids to be around other people and to be around people with different environments and mix. And it was the same thing with my best friend's kids. One of the things that he was worried about was, they went from California to Pittsburgh, and whether or not he was going to get the same socialization with different avenues of kids and everything else, and see different cultures and see different races and everything else. And the great thing that they did was they made a huge, concerted effort to make sure that they put him in situations where he learned about different cultures and different ethnicities and different religions, and he's choosing for himself. Now, they might not like the choices that he makes, but he's free to make choices. And I think the interesting thing about it is you don't have to like me or anything that I say, or you might, or what I believe in or anything to that effect. But the fact that you know something about it and you make an opinion about it that's informed and you've talked to somebody else, it may not change your mind, but at least maybe you understand it. But again, just because you have a conversation with people doesn't mean that you're going to like them. You're just going to have better social skills and understand humanity a little bit better.
Well, I think, yeah, it's part of, if we want to be, we are a part of a culture, right? Like we're all part of some kind of group, if you will, some type of community, wherever we may live, any parts of the world. And it's important that there's no way around it these days to really, there may be some guy, somebody on an island somewhere who doesn't have to interact with anybody, who doesn't partake in our social settings, our situations. But as it stands for most of us, we do have to interact with one another in meaningful ways. And in order to get, I think social interaction is very much like a skill. It's a skill that we have to develop. And if you're not in the habit of developing it, or if you haven't developed it in certain ways so that you can, as you said before, get along with others, have that dance, that sort of, that community dance that you have with the other people that you interact with, then you're going to be, you're either going to be left behind, or you're going to have some real conflict, some real problems. And we see that all the time. As a matter of fact, like you said, like this last weekend, the tragedy in Pittsburgh kind of hit home because Pittsburgh's like my second home, and at the I guess it's the Tree of Life synagogue there in Squirrel Hill, got this guy comes in, shoots people for some anti-Semitic sort of attitude. It's still surprising to even think that people would take it that far in this day and age, but that kind of highlights to me that you're really out of touch with the rest of the community, and we all really need to be in contact. This is not just somebody who's has prejudicial views or has some skewed views about other people and their community, but is this simply not in touch with their own community? Because if you live in a community amongst other diverse individuals, whether it be racially or religiously, or even just from an ideological standpoint, just plain and simple, which we have today with the politics, we have to be able to each communicate with one another and be able to exchange ideas in meaningful ways, even if we disagree and even if we don't, because most of the time I think hate is based on the premise that I'm not going to make any effort to understand you. You are just simply something that I do not desire in this world. I think that's kind of one of the sort of underlying motifs in the ideology, and it doesn't really have a lot of place in a social setting, because we have to be able to understand one another to a certain degree. We don't have to like everything each other stands for or that we each hold as our own ideals, but we have to be able to at least tolerate it from each other, and we have to be able to give it some value, because if we expect others to value our ideas, at least value it enough for us to be able to hold those ideas, practice those ideas in our communities without any conflict, then we have to give other people that latitude as well. And that's the part where I think most people, if you want someone to value your opinion, you must value other people's opinion too, even if you don't agree with it, and beyond opinions.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, if you're going to, let's say this isolationist thing would be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Here's the point. Here's the problem with this. The problem is that we're all multicultural and we're all multi-ethnic in this country. There are very few purely black people, and there are very few purely white people. So I was listening to NPR yesterday, and one of the guys was the head. He used to be the head. His father was the head of the white supremacist movement, and the kid was the kid who went ahead and put in white supremacist blogs. So he introduced the white supremacists to the internet and everything. And now he's since changed his mind, because what ended up happening is he went to a liberal college and he befriended some friends and a girlfriend and didn't know that they were Jewish. And then they figured out that he was actually the white supremacist who wrote all of these blogs and everything. Oh, wow. And instead of them saying, oh, you are wrong, and bombarding him with a whole bunch of stuff and everything, they invited him to Shabbat dinner. And for months, they didn't even talk anything about his beliefs or anything. They just wanted him to know them as people and everything. And then he finally came around and they could have a conversation, because he said that he realized that the people that he was sitting down to have Shabbat with are actually human beings. And he said if they had like yelled and screamed at me ideology and everything, it would have done absolutely nothing for me because I was already shut down. But the fact that they took the time to have dinner with me and didn't, say that I was wrong and start yelling, meant more to me. And then I was, free to understand and, to accept what they want. But what he also said was that, because there is no definition of purely white, their definition in white supremacy is if you look white, which I thought was kind of interesting. So because you can't say what degree you can't be purely that way, their whole thing was if you look white, then you must be white. So if other people and you identify as being white, you are white. And it stands true for anybody who wants to be isolationist, whether it be a black or a Jew or whatever. The thing about it is we are so many of us are so multi, there are very few of us pure. And I venture to say there are none of us that are purely, take a DNA test. It's all over the place. So, I mean, everybody is made up of a microcosm of different races and different cultures and different ideals and stuff like that. And that's what makes us part of the human race. That's what brought in the Renaissance, the Enlightenment period. That's why we are here. That's why we have all of these advancements. It's not because we're isolationists and we've closed things off and everything. It's because we are acceptant and we're tolerant and we think of things in a logical and a humane way. And when we stop doing that, we stop being a productive society. So in closing, what I'm asking people to do is talk to each other. You don't have to agree with anybody. Just be up to listening. Be diplomatic about it, and just be understanding and tolerant. If you don't like something, that's fine. That's them. That's not an infringement on you. That's just their lives. And by all means, vote, because it's part of your civic duty. If you don't like what's happening, if you do like what's happening, vote. That's part of being a part of a democratic society, and that's part of being a part of society. But the most important thing is before you get a gun and everything, talk to somebody. I mean, it's not so bad that you need to kill anyone. No one needs to kill anybody for this.
Well, this definitely shows I think. I don't know what was going on with this guy. I don't know why he had these kinds of views. I don't know what frustration level he had. But I know from psychology and also from my understanding of human behavior that we all act from within. People they give all the excuses that they want about why they feel the way they do, why they do the actions they do, whatever it may be. They say, I do this because this, or this person did this to me, or this person said this, or this person, I disagree with this. And that's all fine. But the reason why any of us hold any views that we do, the reason why any of us act in the ways we do is because it comes from within. If you can't take a joyful person and expect that person to do anything less than where they're at. I'll speak in my language, where they're at vibrationally. Where you are set at, you can only really speak from that or understand anything that's coming at you at that moment in time from that space that you're in. If you are in a frustrated space, good luck on creating understanding and empathy if you're talking to somebody who's angry or frustrated or even anxious. It is very difficult. Just try to talk to somebody in a loving way who's very angry with you, and you'll find that they'll get really frustrated with you very quickly. Even if your intention is just to spew forth toward them love and understanding, they won't be able to hear it. They'll hear the words, but they won't be able to feel the energy of it, and they won't be able to communicate with you on that level until they get themselves into a space that's close enough energetically to love or to understanding or to empathy, and those are much higher vibrational spaces. That energy is much higher, and you just don't that kind of level of communication. You only can communicate with people from an understanding standpoint if they're close enough to you vibrationally. And how do we do that with people who are walking around so frustrated and angry? And that's the big question, because I don't know if I have much of an answer for that, because I grew up in a household that embraced love and understanding, and so I feel very fortunate to be able to come from that space most of my life, to come from a space of happiness. Doesn't mean I didn't have my wants and my desires and my drive and determination to have certain things in my life, but it did mean that there are certain things, like for instance, when I grew up, I always felt accepted by my family. I always felt loved, and I didn't ever feel I had to prove it. That I could get bad grades, I could be ugly, I could be fat, I could be whatever, and I'd still be loved. There were no requirements and no prerequisites for that. And so, but many people don't grow up like that. And so, when you don't grow up like that, then coming from that space in your life, then whether people realize it or not, they oftentimes act and develop views and develop their perspectives based on what they feel in their life. We buy based on emotion. And we justify it with logic. We have our opinions based on our feelings, based on how we feel life is, and we justify it based on our logic that we find, that we choose, and all that is a chosen thing. So it's really fascinating. I've always been confused or befuddled on why people would take such actions against others that they don't even know, especially when those people aren't doing anything to them, so to speak.
I think so. Okay, so I think I get some of the issue here. So I think that people use things that are negative in their life, and they blame it on other people. Okay, so and I think that the language today, be it conservative or liberal, is very destructive language, because the type of language that they're using incites that sort of fear. Okay, so like for instance, the caravan that's coming. So they call it a caravan, which is an assault on America. So it's an assault on America. Now, if I'm Joe Schmo and I don't have a job and I have very little education, and I've been trying my whole life to get out of my economic predicament and everything, but I haven't tried everything. Now I'm just kind of like wallowing in self-pity. I hear caravan, assault, they're coming after us, jobs, I get afraid, because that is someplace that I can displace my anger. I can place my anger there. It's an excuse. So I think that language, and I'm just using that as an example because liberals have plenty of language that they use that incite people as well. So I don't want people to get mad at me by picking on it. That's the first thing that I thought about it. But I think that language that leadership uses, whether or not it's from either party, I think it taps into fear that some people have when they're in denial, that it's them who has put themselves in that situation and them who can get themselves out of the situation. It's kind of like when people get shot, at a school, and they say, why would God do this to us? Okay, well, God didn't do that to you. Somebody with a gun did that to you. You're putting, and now, you need to do something other than pray in order to ensure this does not happen. But God didn't put the gun in that guy's hand. That guy actually bought a gun, and he went in there and he did that. That has nothing to do with, God doing something to you. And I think that people, instead of looking inwardly and saying, what can I do in order to get myself out of X, Y, and Z, or make things better, or what kind of positive energy am I going to take? Because they already have negative energy and they're already, just blaming everybody else because they can't turn it inward and say, okay, this happened to me, but this is something positive that I can do about it in order to change my station in life. They seek out, but a lot of these people are not violent people, and that's an extreme that they're violent people. But there's got to be a way that we can come together and help some of these people out that are basically destructive in their own lives and maybe destructive in humanity. But on a different note, with the bomber, I'm kind of getting sick of them saying that he snapped because he was on steroids. Have you heard that report? Apparently,
no,
they're calling him
This was
So,
from not
the bomber, the guy who got caught
right.
in Florida for putting all those bombs in, he had on a muscle
So
shirt,
this is
right?
different. This is different
So
than the
of
one
course,
this is different than the
this
Pittsburgh event.
this is different than Pittsburgh one. This is the one that mailed all these bombs to
Yes.
Obama and all. So apparently they're saying he was hooked on steroids. Now,
Okay.
the first thing I thought about was that is what you're going to blame this on. And secondly, if you've seen a picture of him, whoever his steroid connection is, he should get his money back. Really. So, that's another thing. People are trying to figure out a reason why people do this, and sometimes it's all about how they feel about themselves, their level of education, their home life, and their environment. Has nothing to do with whether or not they're steroid out, because all of the mass murderers that I've seen have not been on steroids. So that is not a component.
I think people are looking for anything to like blame it on. I think it's natural for us as people to want to seek meaning in everything, right? We want to know what's the meaning of life. What does this mean? Or why is this happening to me? Why is this happening in the world? Why is this person doing this? And that's natural for us to do that. And it's also because of that, I think it's also natural for us to draw some conclusions that are not really necessarily based in reality or based in fact, or certainly not necessarily accurate. Like it maybe. I mean, obviously, I'm not here to say that maybe it didn't have anything, that some there weren't contributing factors, but definitely steroids don't make anybody go and throw send bombs to people or want to kill people. It just doesn't.
No,
that's just ridiculous. That's that's like saying hamburgers. But
exactly, yeah.
But
again, if that's what did it, given his body composite,
then we'd have a
should
lot.
Go back to the gear guy.
Well, we would have a lot of. We would not only that, but we would have a lot more other. We'd have a lot of other bombs being distributed in this world, because I know guys that are using a lot more shit than that dude's ever been using in his life.
Exactly.
I'm sorry
when a friend of mine brought that up in one of his posts, and he goes, it's probably because of steroid use that he did it. And I said, how about you do this? Name me one mass murderer that was on steroids. And I said, that kind of like stereotype is a bad stereotype to have, because the fellow that wrote this was gay like me. I said, how would you like it if everybody stereotyped gays the same way? And as a black guy, if I get pulled over by the cops and we use that whole theory of, he's muscular and he must be on steroids, that becomes dangerous, because they're going to think that I'm dangerous. And I'm like, those are bad stereotypes, and those are bad alignments to have.
Right.
You don't know what made this guy trigger, but I can almost guarantee you it doesn't have anything to do with that. So making bad assumptions like that without having the full makeup of what was going on in this guy's head is really dangerous. So, stereotyping people because of something that they've done and everything, in this case, bombing or mass murder or something to that effect, is a dangerous thing for people.
Absolutely, I think. Well, and again, like I said, everyone's always trying to seek meaning into these sometimes confusing actions and or disturbing things, and this is another example. But I think there were several years ago. I think it was maybe like 10 years ago or something. I remember there was a professional wrestler who killed his wife and his kids and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they blamed it on steroids then too. Chris
Benoit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they blamed it on steroids, and it's like, okay, well, you could. There's so many. It's like pulling out some kind of. Some kind of convergence in a person's life. Like, it could have been steroids. It could have been him that he went to McDonald's that day. It makes McDonald's that makes people kill their wives and their children and shit. No, it doesn't. It's like
let's go ahead.
This is blaming on that,
Let's go ahead.
How about maybe that he was a fucking nutbag? How about maybe he was disturbed?
Exactly.
Maybe he had some psychological issues that he needed to address that he didn't get addressed. Like, I think that's more likely. I think it's more plausible. Just like this guy in Pittsburgh. I don't know his story, but sounds like he's got some issues, man. Like the dude's got some real issues, and it's just showing up in our society. And this is and I made a post about this, and I said, and I know you and I sort of have a slightly different viewpoint on this, but I really kind of feel like opportunities like this. What I didn't want the conversation to turn into socially in our culture about these kinds of things, which it typically kind of does, is how we're going backwards, because we're not going backwards. And the more that people say stuff like that, the more more people start to feel that it is, and then it starts to go backwards. So we must encourage ourselves. It's our job to do that. It's our job to find the positive perspective, to find the good in everything. In everything, there is nothing, in my opinion, there is nothing that happens in this life that we cannot find some good, something inspirational, something moving, something that can propel us forward, and not just pull us back. If something that happens in this life, in our experience as humans, pulls us backwards, it's our job to find the good in it. It's our job to use it to move us forward. As a matter of fact, some of the worst tragedies in the world, I am positive, had some positive impact on moving somebody forward. And I think it's in good ways. So, I mean, how we're a lot more, like even just a small example, even today, like for instance, in this thing in Pittsburgh, I felt like it was a great opportunity for us to show the world and to tell the world that this is something that we don't stand for, that this is not the norm. And for me, when I see stuff like this happening, it's just it's essentially one guy, right? Like it's one guy, and I know there's probably other people out there who feel very similarly, but they're definitely the minority. They are not the majority. I do not meet a preponderance of people. Now maybe it's me, and I'm not attracting those kinds of people, right. but I do not meet the preponderance of people that I meet are not people who hold anti-Semitic views. And nor do, and quite frankly, none want to go out there and start shooting people. Okay, so that's a whole nother fucking step,
I agree, but I think that you're kind of wrong in the fact that people do not hold anti-Semitic.
I didn't say they don't. I didn't say they don't. No, I want to be very specific here. I didn't say they don't. I said that the preponderance of people do not hold those views. And I would say that is probably fairly accurate. In the world today, the preponderance of people, the overwhelming majority, definitely hold a view of tolerance. Go and talk to anybody.
I think that they're tolerant, but I also think that, and my mother used to have a saying that if you tell a black joke, you told a Polish joke, you told a Jewish joke, you told a Hispanic joke, you told a joke. It's a minority joke. It's a sense of hate. Those jokes are not funny. They're not jokes. And, even though I have friends that know that I'm Jewish, they've told jokes that were highly offensive to me. And they as people, they're very nice people, and they respect me, and I've known them most of my life and everything, and I wouldn't have expected it. But even that joke, it's in bad taste. And the same thing with black jokes. It does have a tinge of, you think that is acceptable. That is a tinge of racism. Now, I'm not saying that they're the most racist people in the whole entire world, and it's my duty to say, hey, listen, that joke is a bit racist, or it offends me, and this is the reason why. I think that a lot of people could help out the situation if they explain and have a conversation, an outward conversation, about why certain things are considered racist or offensive, but not have an accusatory conversation, because you might tell a joke that I think is offensive to Jews or blacks or gays, but if I come at you yelling and screaming and pointing out the negatives behind that joke, then you're probably not going to hear my point of view. But if I explain how it makes me feel and put it in context so you can feel it, perhaps you won't tell that joke anymore. Perhaps you'll think about it before you tell it again, or have a conversation about it. And it could be nothing. I mean, at the end of the conversation, it could be completely nebulous, and you're just kind of like, okay, I took it the wrong way.
I'm going to take I take a slightly different stance, and I try to be sensitive myself. I try to be very sensitive to other people's cultures and other people's sensibilities because I care about their experience in this life. But I do want to make this clear, and this is not a strike against anybody whatsoever. It's not my fucking job to manage your feelings. It's not my job to make sure that you feel good about everything that I say, nor everything that anybody else says in this life. And I don't think it's anybody's job to do that. It's my job to make sure I feel good. It's my job to take what anybody says about me, to me, about the world, about other people, and for me to find a perspective that allows me to feel good, or simply ignore the things that I just disagree with. I don't have to hold it against them. I don't. I have lots of friends who definitely are fucking racist. They say racist shit, and they don't realize it because they would never call themselves that. They would never say they are. But I can't. If I took that perspective and told them and tried to change them from telling those kinds of jokes or whatever, then all I do is disrupt my own experience. I'm the one that's suffering. I'm the one that's finding fault. I'm the one that's feeling bad. I'm the one that's getting my feelings hurt. I'm the one that's offended. I'm really taking the stance these days that I just can't be offended. I can't be offended because I have to do that. I have to allow something to come to me, to enter me. So in other words, if you say something about me, let's say like when I was growing up, I was called a Jap, a nipper, shit like that. And to many people, now, as a kid growing up, a little Asian kid, a little Japanese kid, I didn't really understand what the hell they were talking about, first of all. So I didn't even realize they were being racist until later, right? Well, so it didn't affect me. I didn't feel bad. I just thought, okay, well, they're calling me something, but I don't whatever, it didn't mean anything to me. Now, when I got a little older and I figured it out, then I got offended. And I said, what was the difference? So and as I've aged, I've thought to myself, what's the difference? The difference is that I took the message in when I got older. I took it the way that they wanted me to take it. And that's my fault, not theirs, mine. And so today I don't. Today I do my best, at least, to not do that. So that way I control my emotional states. I control, to the best of my ability, my experience. Because I always want to have a good one. And I want everyone to have a good one. I don't want to offend anybody intentionally. I think that the most important thing that I ever do, whenever I discuss anything with anybody, whenever I talk about any topic or express my point of view, I really try in my intention. I always focus on my intention. Even if it's telling a joke, my intention is to add brevity, not to offend anybody. And sometimes, as you just pointed out, people can get offended off of anything. I've offended people from talking about fucking butterflies and shit. I'm sure, it's like, and you just aren't going to be able to please everybody. Never will that happen.
I'm not trying to get somebody on to my side. I'm just trying to explain to them. But whether or not you dig it or not, that's your perspective.
Right.
But I think that, and you would agree with this, Tad, you do not look Asian at all.
Not as a 48-year-old man, I don't. But as a child, but as a kid, if I showed you pictures, man, if I showed you pictures,
but here's my point.
I truly understand. I truly get that. I apologize to interrupt you, but I have to say this. I truly understand the perspective from both sides of the camp. I grew up and I was very much stigmatized as somebody who was of color. Most people thought I was Mexican, or they thought I was half black because I was so dark living in Vegas. And because I'm Native Hawaiian, I get dark, right? And then when I grew up, everybody just pretty much thinks I'm white. So I've had both sides of the camp, and I can get it. I can get some of it, So, but
when you can't go on both sides of the camp, like you have to stay in the camp because obviously of your skin color, it becomes like more difficult. And the other thing is, my thing is that there are some people in my life who have told jokes that they didn't realize at all, and they would have never told that joke if they thought that it would have even been that offensive. And the thing about it is, I've had people come up to me, especially because let's face it, I do not sound like a black guy, and being a Jew, that's even odder. So I've had people call me Oreo cookie.
Exactly. That triple trifecta.
Exactly. And so I've had people call me Oreo cookie, and I was called Oreo cookie most of my life and everything. And my mother, said it's offensive that they call you Oreo cookie. I get,
unless you like Oreo cookies,
people might think it.
But I
exactly.
Get it. I get what they're. I get.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't mean it in a good way.
Exactly. She's like, the first thing, because I thought they meant it in a good way and everything. My mom said some of them may not understand what they're saying and might think that it's really positive, but it isn't positive because it's not, because they have to point out the fact that you're not like what a stereotype is. And that's not good. But, maybe they don't know. So maybe you should just have a conversation with them about, how that makes you feel or what's your interpretation of it, because maybe they don't know. And, I went back to school. I think I was in junior high school when this happened, and I was junior high school in the States, because stuff like that didn't really happen to me in Canada. But, and I explained to the guy why it made me feel uncomfortable. And the first thing he said was, I had no idea that made you feel uncomfortable. I'll never say it again. And I didn't know the reasons why. And we had a civil conversation about it. Now, if he had told me, hey, listen, I thought it was funny, and I still will call you an Oreo cookie. Well, that's his prerogative. He could do that. We might not be friends anymore, but that's my prerogative, whether or not I want to be his friend and whether or not I think he's a negative influence on my life.
But, and in some ways, that's exactly kind of what I'm talking about from the standpoint that you control your experience, in the sense that if somebody's saying something, or if you're having a dialogue with somebody, or if there's some kind of discussion that's offending you, I think that it's best to walk away from those conversations, to not engage with those conversations. And sometimes it means, hey man, like I'm not going to associate with you, even though I like you as a friend. It means you may not want to have a dialogue or conversations with the person because you're constantly feeling offended. But make no mistake, the offense is on your side, not theirs. And what I mean by that is that it's your responsibility to manage the offense. It's not theirs. It's their responsibility to manage themselves and their own feelings. And if it's at your expense, that's bad. In other words, if they're making themselves feel good and they know it's hurting you, that's a bad thing. None of us should do that. But if their intention is good, if their intention is for fellowship, their intention is and they're just accidentally offending you, and you say, hey man, this is offending me, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And then they would probably go, because if it was me, I just wouldn't say that again. I'd be like, okay, man, I didn't mean to say that. I wouldn't mean to offend you. I don't want to hurt your feelings. It's okay. I find it okay and plausible for me to be able to alter some of my speech to accommodate others to a certain degree, but I won't do it if it affects my own well-being, if I have to walk on eggshells just so that my girlfriend is going to feel good because everything I say, she thinks that I'm going to do, that it hurts her feelings. That's not, to me, that's not my job. I'm going to take an easier path. Right. And the same thing goes true with my friends. There's a certain degree of latitude that I would give because I think I would want that too. Right, like we all want a little bit
exactly. But you would want to know. It's kind of
absolutely
takes me back to it takes, and that's my whole point is having that conversation. Just like the former white supremacists, went to Shabbat dinner. If those guys just said, hey, you know what, he's just offensive, I'm going to go the other way, and I'm not going to, I'm not going to engage with this guy because he's just an offensive human being, and I'll just leave him in his own ignorance, right? Then, you may not have turned this guy around, and by them not pointing out the fact that he is in his own ignorance at this point in time, and waiting for the proper time to have a conversation about not how he's ignorant, but educate him about the culture and the religion that they're from, and showing them before they even did it that there is humanity there. That is what actually turned that kid around, and that's what my mother always said to me. It is not the conversation that you have when you're mad. It is the conversation that you have when you're civil-headed. That is the most important one.
Right.
So no one gets anything done when you're mad.
No, you're right.
You're mad, just yell and scream.
Yeah. Nothing gets done.
But you realize nothing gets done. But you realize after you go into your room and you yell and you have a temper tantrum, like when you were a kid, you yell and scream, you have a temper tantrum. Then once you like calm down and you realize you're not going to get what you want by yelling and
Right.
doing temper tantrums and stuff like that, you do critical thinking. That's the first line of critical thinking is, oh, I'm not getting what I want because I yelled and screamed and and gargled and yelled and stood on my head and gargled peanut butter for an hour. But when you come out, you go, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry about doing X, Y, and Z. Let me take a different approach to this in order to get what I want.
Absolutely.
So
well, there's something to be said for I mean, what you're talking. I think what you're sort of hinting at in some part of it is that as what your mother was sort of talking about, this the idea of humanity, of being humane, of being sensitive to other people, because we do live in a, like we said earlier, we do live in a social culture. We are social creatures, and we should be somewhat have a certain degree of empathy for one another, not because we have to, but because we should desire to. We should want to help each other feel good about our lives. And I think that the only reason why people get offended is because they don't know who they are, really. They try to tell themselves something inadvertently when they hear a message like you're a piece of shit or some racist comment or something that doesn't feel good. There's a message that's hidden behind it. Like you said earlier, something that's hidden behind it that's disparaging to the person, to who the person really is. Not what they do, not what they're about, but who they really are. And then when you hear it, we just naturally, automatically try to tell ourselves that message. We check ourselves. It's a conversation that happens lightning fast. It doesn't even register. And we try to tell, and it feels bad because I believe that who you really are, our soul, our consciousness, our true consciousness, whatever you want to call it, knows everything about you, and it's good. And when you try to tell yourself something that's in conflict with that, negative emotion, you experience it. You experience anger or sadness or fear or anxiety, and all those negative emotions, they bubble right up. And that's my opinion, our inner being, our soul, our spirit. That's our inner being's way of communicating with us and telling us it's not right. But what we mostly do is when we feel that kind of energy in our life, we immediately throw it back out at the person that's coming at us. In other words, somebody gives you a disparaging mark, and the most natural response for most people is to attack back, is to say something back, is to do it right back. And it's because and here's what I would tell people, and this is why I don't do it anymore, is because what you're doing when you do that is you're amplifying the negative energy. When somebody attacks you, you attack right back. It's like, I do not do that anymore. No more will I do that. No more will I amplify a negative, a low energy, a negative vibration, negative emotion. I will not amplify it in my life, which is why I say, now you've heard me say this before, I stand against nothing. Because when I stand against the things that I do not like in this world, I amplify their vibration in my experience. And so because I amplify it, I do not want to do that. I don't want more of it. I don't want more racism. I don't want more hate. I don't want more distrust. I don't want more anything that is counterintuitive to my good well-being. I don't want any of that. So what I do is instead of standing against things, I stand for the things that I know are so positive, things that I know we all want, like well-being for all, love and joy and happiness for everybody, equality for everybody, fairness for everybody in our own way, empowerment for everybody, and the freedom to think and feel as we choose. And I think that's the most important takeaway from me in all these discussions, is that no matter what happens in this world, we're in charge. We are in charge of our own. I may not be in charge of your experience, but I'm in charge of mine, how I feel about my experience. I can't control the stuff that happens, but I can control my response to it and how I feel about it.
I agree to a certain extent. I think that people, one of the problems with society today is that I think that people are undereducated about themselves.
Absolutely.
And about their cultures and so on and so forth. So I'll just use an example because it came off the top of my head. Europeans made every great scientific discovery and technological discovery in the 20th century, something to that effect, okay? That is not true. Not true. And I think that
I don't know this.
When people hear this, but I mean, when people hear this, especially people of color or who are not European descent, the first thing they either A, get mad about it, Or second thing, they internalize it and say, well, my people must not be as good as their people because now we're not as intelligent as the other. No, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. Do some research. Just because somebody says it does not demote you as a human being or your race or your culture or anything to that effect. You need to know what you can do and what the people before you have done and what your community has done and so on and so forth, and be proud of that. There are positives in everybody's race, everybody's religion, everybody's community, everybody's, origin. There's positives there.
Yeah.
No one needs to be degraded by any stature of their lives or any like organization that they they're for.
The funny thing is that I think that with the exception of maybe a few people out there in the world, most people, if you ask them, I think they would agree. You would agree that they would say, if you ask them, do you have value in this world? That 99.99999% of people out there in the world believe that they have value in this life. That's why they're here. They have value. Now, maybe there might be a few that don't, but the vast majority of people believe that they have value. Otherwise, they wouldn't push their own perspective, right? Because we all try to do it from time to time. Some of us do it all the time, and some of us do it rarely. But most of us, from one point time to time, just like what we're doing in this nice exchange on our show, is where I'm presenting my perspective, you're presenting your perspective. While we don't really butt heads much, even if we disagree, most people will push their perspective out there in this space because they believe that it has value, because it's not the idea, it's because they're presenting it. It's their idea, they sort of own it to a certain degree, and they feel like there's value. So if you believe that, if you accept the premise that each individual believes that they have value in this world, whether it be because of their ideas or the work that they do or whatever it is, but there's some intrinsic value that we all have, then it flies in then anybody who's racist, anybody who devalues another human for who they are as a person, they don't realize that what they are really doing and what they're really saying is that they don't have value either. When you discredit another's value, you discredit your own, because we all are built the same way. There's no distinctions. Like we're all built the same way. We all come from the same sort of infinite intelligence, spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it. But we all have the same. We all have the capability to be able to achieve, to be able to build wonderful lives, to be able to have all these things that we want, to be able to create ideas, to be able to create new things. But at the very basis of it all, if you believe one has value, you must believe all have value. And that's where it just shows to me that people who hold perspectives like this, who hold prejudicial perspectives or racist perspectives or perspectives that really just discredit or devalue other people, haven't really thought through this argument well enough. They're just going out there. It tells me that they feel, for lack of a better way to describe it, they feel insecure with themselves, and they must push others down. They must devalue others so they can build value from within. And that tells me you don't know who you are. That the people who do that just don't know their own value. They want to know their value. They believe they have it, but they don't know where it's at. They can't really get their fingers in it. So they're looking for it, they're searching for it, and the way that they've discovered to search for it is by taking it away from others, by devaluing others. Because why should they be elevated? Why should they be in this life and when I don't feel it? So if I push them down, then my value must come up. And that's just a bad logic. So that's the way I see it.
Well, and it's funny. It's funny. The person there, and I'm not gonna name the rapper by name.
Go ahead,
here.
Name him. He'll never hear the show.
But he basically went in front of the President of the United States and told you exactly what his value was. It was interesting how people were piled on to him and everything else and called him an idiot and everything else.
Oh, Kanye,
but sure. He basically showed how much he devalued himself. He went on a whole tirade about, how Hillary Clinton has taken his masculinity. He didn't feel masculine if he voted for her, but a red cap made him feel like Superman and masculine.
I didn't
So,
see this. I didn't see this thing. My brother mentioned this thing. My brother mentioned to me, and he's like, "No." It's kind of funny you say that because my brother said, I was just talking to him the other day, and he's like, and my brother's very educated, of course. He's a professor, and he's very politically active. He writes on racism and ethnic identity, and he's actually at the top of his field in this. And people recruit him all over the world to go speak at universities on this very topic. But he's like, yeah, he's a fucking idiot. That guy's an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. But if your brother thought about it in a different way, though, at first I thought, God, what an idiot, But then I thought about it, and I was like, this man is basically telling you he's worthless.
So give me that. So what was the conversation? I didn't hear the interview. I didn't hear the statement. So what was the actual crux of it? Like, what was the meat of it?
The crux of the conversation was, some of it was the fact that, you should respect the president because the man is the president. And therefore, because he is the president and everything else, you should put him up, you should make him feel almost like God. He should wear what he said was the flyest clothing, the flyest automobile, blah, blah, blah. So apparently they're just supposed to give him all sorts of stuff. And then he said one of the reasons why he couldn't get with Hillary was because Hillary basically sucked out his masculinity, and he didn't feel masculine when he voted for him. And he's surrounded by a lot of estrogen, and he didn't feel very masculine when thinking about it. But when he wore that red cap, that MAGA cap, and he saw this man, it made him feel like Superman, and it made him feel more masculine.
Okay. Again, we make our choices emotionally,
exactly,
and we justify it with our logic.
Exactly. But I mean, I'm just saying that basically Tad, to tell you the truth, it was a meltdown, and it's not something really to be laughed at all, because basically he melted down on national television.
Well, that was what my brother said.
He F-bombed all over the place.
Well, that's what my brother said. Like, hey, I said, well, why is this? Why do you not like this guy so much? He said, Tad, he goes, if you ever see this guy in the award ceremonies, and he constantly he'll go and interrupt people. He'll take the spotlight off the people that they're really trying. And he's like, he puts that. And I said, maybe he's a little narcissistic. Maybe there's just some narcissism going on there.
I don't think he's. You know what? I don't think he's narcissistic. I think that basically you're seeing a man who doesn't think that much of himself at all. He doesn't think that much of himself, so therefore he finds other things to make him feel like he is something is valuable. He's not taking in the whole theory that he is incredibly talented. Because he is talented. Now, whether or not you love rap music or you don't love rap music, he's talented. He's a talented producer. He's a talented rapper and stuff like that. But he's not taking. I don't think that he understands his true value in life. Even if you take away rapping, the fact that he can put things together and his first album was a great album. It was very, it was very thoughtful. It was very, it was very intuitive and everything to that effect. So you know that he has, he's an intelligent guy, but he doesn't see himself that way. He sees people taking things away from him instead of him, producing energy that, he can have positives come out of him,
maybe
where he is somebody,
And I think he hinted at it before, and he may have been joking, he may not have been joking, but whatever the case, there might be some logic to the fact that he does have too much estrogen around him, namely the damn Kardashians. And I don't know.
Well, yeah, true.
I just don't think you can't be surrounded by that kind of materialism, that kind of. Don't get me wrong. I don't know what those conversations are like at home. Kim Kardashian, all these people, they could be really absolutely highly intellectual, wonderful people at home, but I just severely doubt it. I don't know them, so I don't have any clue. But from what I see, what they project, what I see, I would probably want to put a bullet in my head. I don't know. I guess I just, no wonder he's going nuts, man. I would probably go nuts too, man. Hang around that group.
I agree. I agree, but nobody's nobody's life is completely sane. I mean, everybody's got at least 2% of insanity in their life.
The Kardashians are on a whole another level of insanity.
Oh yeah, no. Oh yeah,
these women are so self-absorbed. It feels like, at least. raised and so self-centered.
Oh yeah,
very
well,
narcissistic.
As the mother said, she said, I guess on the Ellen show, I saw it. I saw it on YouTube because, as you know, I listen to all sorts of stuff while I do this 45 minutes of cardio you have me doing. And she said she said that she would have rathered him discuss that in private. And she's right. I mean, if he wants to have a mental breakdown, let him have a mental breakdown. But
Well, yeah.
that's the wrong place to have a mental breakdown.
It is his, it says something else about that too. That she's probably right. That if you probably might be a good idea. That way you don't get all the backlash of the kind of conversation that you and I are having about it. But at the same time, it says something about the man's lifestyle that, hey, look, man, if he's interacting with if the people that if his closest circle of people, his wife, his people, is such that he feels the need to go on national TV in front of with the president or whoever it was, and spew forth this blabber, go have a meltdown in front of like millions and millions of people, then maybe that says something that, hey man, you got to take a closer look at your life, you got to take a closer look at the people that are in it, and the reasons why. Like, instead of saying you shouldn't have said that in public, maybe it's like, well, why did you feel the need to say it? Maybe that would be the question that she should be asking, instead of you should have said it in private. Like, so you can hide it? Like, no, man. Like, he obviously felt the need to express this. My heart goes out to people like anybody who is experiencing any kind of pain in life, because all pain is self-induced. And so I know this, that we create our own pain by the perspective that we hold on whatever topic it is. And he's obviously got some pain in his life that he's trying to work his way through. And if he feels the need to air that on in front of the country, in front of the world, that means he's up at the boiling point. My brother said the guy's having mental breakdowns everywhere. It's like,
oh yeah, well, the funny part of that is, like, he said some disparaging things about blacks, and then he got on television and he was confronted by it, and then he said, oh, he did the right thing this time. He goes, one of his handlers, before he was about to like spew off into this, nonsensical thing, one of his handlers said, you don't know enough about that to speak on it. And he looked at him, and then all of a sudden he says, I don't know enough about it to speak about it. And he got himself out of it and stuff. Here's a little clue with, black men who are like very, are in show business or, very rich. Don't be like Bill Cosby.
Don't be like.
So, in other words, don't say something disparaging about, anybody's people. This could be white, black, or whatever, and then all of a sudden you do it, because it will come back to you tenfold. Yeah. I mean, just ask Bill Cosby. Right. So that.
Well, I think it's probably a bad
handlers,
it's definitely a bad practice in general to speak disparagingly about anybody. However, as an American, and I'm proud of the kinds of rights and the kinds of freedoms and liberties that we have, I think that it is essential to be able to. It is essential. To be able to have an open dialogue.
But my thing is. Yeah, my thing is it's just like when Bill Cosby said those disparaging things about black men. For one, I thought he was completely wrong, because I'm not that type of black male,
right.
And I thought that he was pigeonholing all of us, and that was wrong and everything to that respect. But and the fact that it didn't really hurt me because I'm not one of those guys, right. But it does hurt the perception of black men, and that's the problem that I had with him. But when his whole world fell apart, it was almost like I pointed and laughed at him, because I was like, I am not doing what you're doing by a long shot. I will never be accused of doing anything remotely that bad ever in my life. You can go back to college. I've never done anything like that. That is bad, my friend. And you want a bad mouth me. Bill Cosby?
Well, Bill Cosby, I know he did.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the reasons why those type of remarks, though, those type of remarks are like, if you don't have baggage like that, then maybe you can speak on it. But you need to think. You can say whatever you want, but you need to think about If it comes back on you that you did the same thing, if you're throwing a stone, make sure that stone doesn't come, flaring back at you.
You and I both know that we all have baggage, and anybody who doesn't believe it, there's your baggage. Yeah. It's like, we all have dysfunction in our families. We all have baggage we carry. And I mean, maybe the Dalai Lama doesn't, but like most of us,
I'm sure he does.
Yeah, I'm sure he does too.
Everybody has baggage.
We all have.
It's kind of.
Yeah, we all have.
It's kind of like Kavanaugh. Even though I get what everybody's saying, but let me just say, I'm going to be perfectly honest about this. When I was in college, and some of my friends are listening to this very program, I was drunk in college. Completely wasted in college. So for somebody to say, no, I was reading the Bible and I didn't drink is insane. That's insane. that's just a lie. I know exactly what I did back then and everything. So if somebody, you're not going to, Tad, you're not going to like get me in an interview and say, hey, listen, did you do a keg stand? And me go, no, I never saw a keg stand in my life.
I'll go on the record. I'll go on the record.
Did more
I'll go on the record and say that when I was in college and graduate school, I didn't drink and I didn't do that stuff. And I was very, very dedicated to my bodybuilding practice, but I did go to seminary, so I was reading the Bible. But I am definitely not the normal guy.
You can read the Bible. But you could read the Bible and do all the rest of that stuff. But I mean,
I was having fun. I did go and have fun. I went to parties.
I'm not so silly to tell you that I'm not having fun.
Yeah,
and I think that's what trips people up is that they basically don't want to tell the truth about their lives. They want to they'll never figure out about it.
Well, here's the funny thing. In the age of social media that we live in today, everybody presents a life to the world. And I kind of feel like, and I think many people feel this way, that most of it is just sort of, it's not a real life. It's a fake life. It's this picturesque life. It's this life that exists around the best snapshot of the day, the best picture of the day, the best video snippet of the day. And we all know, just like with the news doesn't really exist behind 3-second sound bites. You can't get the news that way. And most people do. And so it presents one very small facet of our life. While it may be a facet of our life, it's not the complete story. And I try my best, especially on social media, not to do that, not to just present the best of the best, because that can give people the wrong idea. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not somebody who lives an idyllic life. I try to make it as idyllic as I can for me, and by holding a good perspective, and by always choosing the joy of my life, by always choosing the good perspective, to try to create more understanding and those kinds of things in my life. I think everyone tries to do that to a certain degree, hopefully. And if they don't, that's okay. That's their prerogative. But it is a sort of an interesting sort of scenario that we live in, because we don't really what we end up today. It's so easy to catch people in contradictions, because most people really are not as consistent as they really would like to be. They say one thing and then they contradict it later, and it's easy. You could find it in anyone. You know what I mean? Because at one point in our say right now, you and I are having this conversation today, and in 2 years from now, you and I could have a very different conversation and contradict ourselves to a certain degree on some of the points, because the nature of our life, we've evolved and we've changed and we've become something different, and we may hold a slightly different perspective on that same topic because now we have more information, or now we have some experiences that color our life in a different way, and now we see things differently. So. It's absolutely possible.
I have to admit that I do not do what you do on social media. There is never going to be a picture of me ever being 350 pounds. It will never happen. There will not be any pictures of me from my family, because I think I've burned all of them. I think I've got all. If my family's listening to this, they better not put any of them up. But that will never.
Okay, so
I will talk about it if asked. But
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of my ex-girlfriends from high school. She's married today, has a wonderful family. I haven't really kept in much contact with her, but she follows me on social media, and she's a really wonderful girl, but lady today. But she messaged me last night late, and she's like, "Hey, I found this picture, and it was from high school, from my senior year. Oh my God, I'm totally posting this today, man. And it's like fucking, it's total comedy because it's me. I'm trying to be like this fucking sexy dude with this like tank top and this like my sunglasses and my haircut. And I'm like thinking I'm like all that shit, you know, like, dude, I remember the day I took that picture with my girlfriend. My girlfriend had my camera. She took the picture, and we took several pictures. And because she was always giving me all these wonderful compliments, building my ego up, and she was like, "You should be a model, man." I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" You know. Of course, I'm just a stupid kid, you know. Like I believe in that shit. And this was one of the better pictures that came out of it. And I'm gonna post it, but it's kind of funny to say because I love embarrassing myself. I love like giving myself that kind of because I used to really be afraid of embarrassment, but that's the way my mother used to.
Actually, it's not embarrassment to me. Like 350 pounds.
It's like I don't want that shit floating around.
Well, no, actually, because I didn't have a medical problem or anything. And to me, I inflicted that on myself. And so it's just a reminder. It's a negative reminder for me that, you know, I can be destructive towards my mindset and my physical body, you know, that in that way. Right. So to me, I would rather not remember like negative, you know, that much negative trauma. I'd like to work through it and correct it. And I feel like, you know, I've corrected it by using food in the right way and using alcohol in the right way and so on and so forth. So I don't need a reminder of anything negative. Now, there's some people out there that use that as incentive in order not to be, you know, to go backwards in that manner.
Right.
But for me,
motivation.
It's complete opposite. They use it for motivation. And for me, in order to get out of that destructive behavior, it was motivation to get out of it. Once I got out of it and everything, I didn't need that motivation anymore. It's kind of like, that's a negative, you know, I'm moving on. I'm going someplace else, you know? So if my family does put them up there, I'm going to take them off. I'm going to
disown my family.
Facebook and Instagram. Exactly. And I'm going to say that these are like malicious lies, and you know,
I'm going to crash Facebook and Instagram servers. I'm going to
because I believe that I have friends in college that I'm really close to that might have pictures of me in college. So I'm not sure about that, but I'm going to say I might be 30% right that they do have pictures of me in college. I did see a picture. I was cleaning out my mom's stuff after she died, and I saw a picture of me when I was 350. And that thing, I burned that thing so quickly. I almost burned that house.
You're like, never again. Well, you're not that way. I'm telling you, you're not that way now. And by the time we get you ready for this next show at the Arnold, you're gonna look pretty. You're gonna look pretty amazing. I know it because your body's already doing so well right now, better than I think it has in the recent past. So I'm really pleased. So it's just a little boring right now, unfortunately. Because it's sort of a little bit, because you know we got to do autopilot a little bit so that your body can set in, but it's good. But speaking of bodybuilding, let's switch gears slightly. We mentioned that we talked about this earlier before we got on before we were recording. You mentioned I guess there was an interview with Chris with Psycho Fitness. Chris, who trains Sean Roden, and I guess he had talked. I don't know, was he on RX Muscle? Or who was interviewing him?
He was on the one that I saw was Nick Trigili. He was on Nick Trigili's show, and let me just tell you,
that dude looks like he's eating donuts, man. Now he looks like he's eating. I said that dude looks like he's eating too many donuts right now. Like, is he getting chunky or something? He doesn't look like he used to look.
He doesn't work out anymore. I think he just trains people. I don't think that he actively really works out that much anymore. I think he just trains people right now. Okay. And he has a couple of products that he has. Okay. I've never tried products or anything to that effect, but
I've never really even talked to the guy, to be perfectly honest. So he's one of the few people in the industry that I don't know, but I haven't heard anything necessarily super horrible, but I do. But from your comments about his show, he seems to talk about a lot of different topics. So.
He talks. I mean, he's kind of like us in that he talks about a lot of different topics. He does do some educational stuff with steroids and training and stuff like that. He has an interesting theory about bringing up like you pick a couple of muscle groups a month and everything, and how to exhaust them and stuff to that effect. Sure. So some of his
philosophies.
Yeah, his content is actually very good. I will say that he has a lot of content out there, and you are free to peruse it and then figure out which is good for you. I find the same thing like Mark Lubner
Yeah.
from MTS. I think that's what it is. I find his stuff like informative as well. They do a good job of trying to promote bodybuilding and trying to like put out as much information, and as much educational information that they possibly can. So I have to give them kudos for that. Now, whether or not you like their personalities or not, that's up to everybody else. But I thought that his interview with Chris, but let me tell you, I did not know Chris was that funny. Chris is hilarious.
Chris is funny.
That guy is funny as hell. And I had no idea because I told you what my interaction was with Chris. I was always at Lift Factory, and every Olympia I see Chris. Last year it was with Dexter. He was training Dexter year before last, and over at Lift Factory, and he looked like he wanted to kill somebody, and I just stayed away from him. This year he was looking for his clients, and I think he might have been looking for Sean while you were getting a massage. And he looked like somebody's late. I'm going to kill somebody. So I always stay out of his way. I'm like, listen, I'm staying out of your way, man. You're taller than me. You're bigger than me. Let me just stay out of your way. But so him being funny was kind of like was different for me. But he was really funny. And he talked about the fact that if Sean hadn't won, Sean was prepared to retire, which I thought was kind of interesting because I've never even thought about Sean retiring. I would think Dexter would retire before Sean because, there's an age difference there, not by much, but I wouldn't, Sean's body isn't deteriorating, neither is Dexter's. So I just couldn't fathom the fact that he would retire. But sure enough, that was one thing that came out of it, was that he was planning on retiring. And the other thing is that Sean pretty much trusted Chris to do whatever he wanted to do as far as his workouts and Chris Aceto as far as his nutrition. And apparently he hadn't done that in the past, with his training and everything. So I thought that was kind of interesting because, that's a lot of trust there, even though I know Chris has been a mentor with, Charles for years, but, he didn't even, it sounded like, and I might be completely wrong here, but he didn't really give Charles full reign, but he did give Chris full reign, and I think he bought into a system, and I think that's really why he won, is because he bought into both systems like completely full tilt, full throttle.
Well, I'm going to tell you my perspective on this kind of stuff is always the same, and I've come to know that when you hear this a lot, actually. And I'll tell it like this. I was talking to my brother a couple years ago, and we were discussing. He was struggling a bit. This is several years ago, and he was always worried about getting tenured in the academia. That's what you worry about, right? Like you want to get tenured, so you have job security, and you get paid more, and blah blah blah. And he was always worried about that. You got to publish so many times a year. You got to do this. You got to do that. All these requirements, right? And you don't get paid jack as a professor. I'm sorry, they just don't pay him well enough. But so he's struggling, so there's all this demand to do this. So there's all this sort of pressure. You have all these people, you have mentors, you have all the same kinds of things going on. And so he's working. And I'm talking to him. I said, hey man, and he's struggling with money a little bit. And I said, well, what's the, I said, well, and of course I've always done well. And he said, I'm just not going to ever really have the kind of resources that you have, Tad. I'm not going to be able to drive the same kind of cars. I said, well, why would you say that? I said, you just have a bad relationship with money. That's all you have. And he said, well, my job is to just find, I have a ceiling here. And I said, well, what do you got to do? Like, tell me what you got to do. And we talked about it. And I said, I think you really need to just change your relationship when it comes to your career and your money. And so what he did, and then just about a year and a half ago, I went out there to see him for Christmas or something. And he was really doing well. And it seemed to me, and I said, hey, man, I've been meaning to ask you, man. I said, seems to be like the last year or two, couple years, you just been on fire, man. Like people are asking him to travel all around the world. He's gone half the month to different countries, different universities, asking him to talk to other professors, and he's got tenured. He got Book of the Year, couple of Book of the Year awards. He's been recognized. He's chairman of the Four Cs Committee. That's like the Olympia for English in academia. I mean, he's like really out on the stratosphere right now in academia for English, and especially for rhetoric and composition. And he said, well, I'll tell you what I did. He said, I just stopped giving a shit. I just focused on the shit that I loved. I just said, you know what? I'm not going to care so much about tenure. I'm not going to care so much about getting published. I'm not going to care so much about all this other crap. I'm going to focus on the crap that I love. And he said, I just let go. And I think that's what kind of happens in a lot of, you hear this. And when he did, by the way, it all started coming into his experience. He just, boom, tenure, boom, job offers, boom, this, boom, this, boom, this. And I think that's kind of what happened with Sean in a certain sense, that when you just let go, quit trying so hard. And I've said it like this in other shows. Get the fuck out of your own way. Because most people are in their own way of their own success. They get in their own way. And they get in their own way by trying to work their way to it. And I'm gonna go out there and say that, and I'm not the only person that says this, because I know this is the way it works. That you can have success in multiple, you can achieve success in this life in a myriad of different ways. You can work your way there. That's the fucking hard way to do it. Okay? And we venerate people to do it that way. But that's not the easiest way to do it. Easiest way to do it is to move through inspiration and to be inspired to action, and the work that you do, that's the kind of work that gets most of the work done. But more importantly, you got to let go. You got to let go of these of all the resistance that you're providing yourself by holding so tightly to what you want. Because most of the time, when we want something in this life, we think it's going to come to us a certain way. I got to do it this way. This is my plan. This is the course of action. And I know you, coming from a world of project management, you have a plan. There's action items. There's dates. It's very meticulous and planned out. But when it comes to this success in this life, you can try to do it that way, but you know just as well as I do, you're going to be revising that plan every fucking day practically, because things just don't come into focus the way we think they will all the time. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't. A lot of people go, oh, I want to go in and do the nationals, get my pro card, and then I'll go do this show and do this. And they have this strategy and this plan. And then when one little thing fucks up on it, one thing doesn't come out to fruition the way they think it does, they're screwed. And they kind of like fall apart. And they think, oh, it's not going to happen. And that's called getting in your own way. Instead of going with the flow and moving and using those some would call failures, but really they're just points of clarity that you get to learn from. You get to figure out, okay, well, you weren't good enough. And so because you weren't good enough, you're not going to achieve those goals. This is your life's way of showing you what to do. The loss is showing you, is educating you, is helping you. It's not holding you back. You are holding you back by the perspective that you hold on that loss. You say it as you take it as a loss. You take it as an inability to be able to achieve what you want, instead of taking it as a strength of clarity to give you the momentum you need to move you in the direction that you really need to be in, right? And that's the way it works. And so I think that maybe in Sean's case, letting go. Because I know he had a hard time with some of that stuff, like letting go, because he and I talked about some of that stuff at times, letting go of some of your own ideas, letting go and letting somebody else take the reins, and then you take all the stress off of your head and off your back, and you can just go and enjoy your experience, enjoy the process of all this stuff that you do, and that's how success comes. I remember watching Sean in previous years backstage, and he looked good, but he's pensive and he's like, I could tell he's worried. And then after the show was over, he was upset. And I was like, and this year was totally different. Now, aside from him winning, but even prior to him knowing he was winning, he seemed more relaxed. He seemed more at ease. He seemed even that way at the press conference. I could tell just by his responses. And it sounded a little kind of almost cocky in some ways, but it's that cockiness that comes from a sense of knowing, like, hey man, I got this. And it's not that I got this like I'm going to beat everybody, even though I think that's what he was feeling. It's that I know I did everything. I know I looked the best I could look. And if that ain't good enough, fuck it. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, actually, it's funny that you say that, because that is exactly what Chris said. They actually got him into the mindset and even scripted some of this stuff in order to, because they knew how to get into Phil's head. See, Chris, you give credit to Chris for training, but Chris got, you have to give credit for Chris for building a psychological plan too, because Phil basically, this is his perspective. Phil just tries to tear people apart, calling you an e-whore or something to that effect. He tries to.
Remember that was
tries to.
Yeah.
I think he tries to demote his opponents to a certain extent, right?
Right.
And so what Chris was saying is, when all of a sudden, Phil does his histrionics and he tries to rev up the crowd like, I'm the best, and throws up his arms and stuff like that. He said, Sean, just look at him like he's lost his mind. It'll throw him off. And if you look back and if you remember, Tad, we watched that, and it was almost like Phil had no idea what was. He could see the whole, like his whole demeanor. When Kai actually reacted to that stuff and everything, it egged him on. He was, he was even more animated, right? But when Sean looked at him like,
that's because,
got nothing.
I think what you're highlighting is really, it's fascinating. I'm glad you picked up on that, because what you're highlighting is when you do something to elicit a response, and it's the response that's important for your success, you lost. You're going to be at a disadvantage if the other guy gets it. And what I mean by that is the reason why it didn't work for Phil is because it was predicated on the response that he needed to get from Sean. Like he needed, or the audience, or whomever else is standing next to him. He needs to respond. The response is, I'm the best. Who's the best? You guys all know it. And then everyone's going to echo this, right? But like you said, if he turns and looks at you and says, you're out of your mind, I don't know what you're talking about. You are nuts. Then you're not getting the response that you need. Instead, if Phil had gone out there and it came from a sense of knowing, I'm the best, then it changes the story. But it didn't come from that. It looks like it came from a standpoint that was really trying to elicit a response. It's the same thing that happens when people go up on stage, and it irritates me every single time. And I see them ag on the crowd like they want you to cheer. Like if they're not going to, if you're not doing a good enough job to make them cheer, then I'm like, it's like that kind of action is coming from a place of eliciting a response instead of a place of knowing. And when you come from a place of knowing, then you don't need responses. You don't need anyone else. You don't need consensus from anybody else that you're great or that you're good or that you have it within you, and then you automatically win. You win, and you may not necessarily win the trophy, but you win when you get there. And that's all we really always want to feel. People say they want the trophies. They want to feel like they win. They want to, they think the trophy will give them that. It does sometimes.
And it will. Well, that's what Psycho was. What Chris was saying. He was like, listen, if he didn't win, he knew he won. But if they didn't give it to him, he knew he won anyway. And he even thought about old school stuff. He goes, one of the reasons why Sean stayed fully clothed is because we decided we were going to do more old school. It's like, Kevin Levrone, always had baggy pants and stuff like that.
Right.
And it basically was like, okay, I'm not going to, show you what I've got and everything. And then he said, you know what? I think what we'll do is, why don't we go ahead and shoot some things with you not so clothed, with gym shorts on and and a t-shirt, right?
Right.
And the whole theory behind this is let them see you look puffy and soft. So, and if you notice, I even said this too. Oh my gosh, he looks really puffy and soft, and he looks really small, and it's already 4 weeks out. I don't know what he could do. It doesn't even look like he's going to make it top 10. That's exactly the thought that they wanted to elicit, is that, oh yeah, no, everybody's counting him out because he looks puffy and everything else. No one was factoring in the fact that, like, Sean is kind of a late bloomer when it comes to, getting into really great conditioning. He can get in condition in 3 weeks, 2 weeks out and everything. They did that 4 weeks out, right? But they did it on purpose. So nobody was looking at him at all.
Kind of funny.
I think that a lot of people, though, as far as, him, Phil trying to elicit the crowd and everything, I think a lot of bodybuilders on that stage figured that out, because if you look at, Rolly didn't buy into it either. Rolly was like, all right, well, you go ahead, clap your hands, wave your hands. I'm the people's champion. And apparently Phil got mad because he didn't understand why he didn't win people's champion. I'm like, really, man?
Well, he's
you
not
don't
the
know
people's
why
champion.
you did. You're not the people's. But his thought was because, and this is according to Chris, because he won Mr. Olympia, he should be the people's champion.
Well, I mean, if the champion of the Olympia were voted by the people, then yeah, but it's not. It's voted by judges. So I definitely disagree with. I understand the logic, and I would say that in an ideal world, that would be great. To have the judges agree with the fans, but that's not always the case. The fans had their favorites. By far, it's obvious when Rolly stepped out there that everybody likes the dude. Definitely. I mean, like, he is a popular fucking dude, like everybody likes him. And speaking of old school, which is the last segment that I want to talk about today, I watched the movie Ronnie the King. I guess the same people, who was it that made anyway, the documentary on Ronnie Coleman's career. And it was released on Netflix. Go watch it if you get to see it on Netflix. And I know you haven't seen it yet, but I watched it the other night. And man, it brought me back because I grew up in the era of Ronnie in the 90s. That was my time in my 20s when I was banging hard in the gym and like really, really going for it. And it was the time of bulking up and heavy weight gainers and 7,000 calories I ate a day and this kind of shit, to get to, and I got up to 272. So it was the days where you just bulked up and then cut down. And man, it was I have to admit, that was a really wonderful, just a really wonderful sort of documentary on Ronnie Coleman, his career, and how he became a champion. And people have asked me this before: who is the greatest bodybuilder in the sport? And I have always said, and I still say today,
Ronnie Coleman.
Ronnie Coleman, he's the king. Like, he really, truly is.
Ronnie Coleman.
But for different reasons. But when you ask me who has had the best genetics in the sport, Flex Wheeler, hands down. But who is the greatest? Who is the greatest Olympian? Who is the greatest champion? Ronnie Coleman. I mean, this dude, it's really, really, it's amazing. They did a really wonderful job highlighting his career, highlighting his attitude, what he's about, all that kind of stuff, and where he's at today. I want you to watch it because I want to have a deeper discussion with it. But I will say one thing about this documentary that I was disappointed in that they did that. I don't know, and I kind of figured why they did, but there's a segment in there where they talk about. So Ronnie had a challenging career coming up when he was first. He turned pro as naturally at the Team Universe when it was a tested event, and then he competed his first pro show. I think around 220 pounds or so, 218, 220, something like that, and then gained slowly every year. He was always like that. He was a powerlifter first, and then he became a bodybuilder. And when he for several years in the early 90s. This dude's getting last place at the Olympia, last place. He's not placing well. He's competing a lot, like 6-7 shows a year, 10 shows a year. And this is back when we had the Russian Grand Prix, the French Grand Prix, all these great European shows that we no longer have or have been renamed. But there were lots of we had a field of really wonderful, high level today, world class sort of bodybuilders, Kevin Levrone, Nasser El Somebody, Dorian Yates, all these really great bodybuilders, Sean Ray, they were all competing at the same time. Lee Priest, and they're all competing at the same time on the same stages. And Ronnie was in the mix of this, and he was nowhere to be found in terms of the top placings. And then all of a sudden he blows up. He gets 9th place at the Olympia. First he's getting like 15th and 16th places, and then he moves it up to 9th one year, and then the next year he wins. When that year it was supposed to be Flex Wheeler that won because Dorian Yates had just retired, he was gone, and they figured, the change in the guard is going to be Flex. And then of course Ronnie steps on stage, and everyone's just blown away, right? But prior to that year, the previous year, he was still struggling, and he calls up at a show. I can't remember what show it was. They kind of talk about this. They interviewed Kevin Levrone, and he says, "Yeah, Ronnie calls me and says, 'Hey man, can I come up in your room and I got a question to ask you?' And he says, 'Sure, man, sure, Ronnie, come on up, man.' So he comes up. And Kevin won. He won that show. I think it was like, all right. So we're having a little technical difficulty. So I think we were talking about the movie Ronnie the King, and I was just talking about one of the parts of the movie that I really sort of disagreed with in terms of I wish they had told the truth, and it was really talking about some of the drug stuff when Ronnie came to Kevin Rone's room and asked him for some advice. And I know that it was my I just again, like I wasn't in that room, so I don't know exactly the conversations, but I do know that that was a conversation that was had at some point during that time, and I think that was probably it because I had heard some story similar to this from other people in the industry that. Yeah, like Kevin had given him that talk, and he had called him and asked him and a couple other people as well. I don't think he was the only one, and about it, and he was given the advice that he needed to sort of not be natural anymore. I just kind of wish. Now, again, it's probably a conversation that he doesn't want to get involved in the documentary. But if you want to make a documentary that really resonates with people, especially in the industry, you probably want to tell the truth. But I get it. I mean, I don't know. I think they were trying to be deceptive. I just think they omitted that information. But above that, beyond that, I thought it was a really great. I thought it was a really fantastic documentary on Ronnie. You really get to see the incredible nature of him as Mr. Olympia and why he's considered, probably in my opinion, the greatest bodybuilder that we've had in the industry, the greatest competitive bodybuilder we've had in the industry. And my favorite, and I'll spoil one line. And it's not really a spoiler because it's been shown before. He talks about it, and I used to wonder this too. I think we mentioned it earlier. Why he still worked as a police officer while he was Mr. Olympia. He won several titles, and he says, "'Cause I love it," And what a great, I mean, like that to me. And I've said it before when it comes to champions. The reason why most champions are champions is because they do the stuff of champions because they love it. They do the work that they do because they love it. They don't do it because it's work. Ronnie's a guy who still, even today, with his back stuff and all the injuries and all the he can't hardly walk upright because of the pain in his low back. He still goes to the gym at 4:30 every morning and works out and trains against his surgeon's advice, of course.
I see. But, well, I kind of wonder though, because I've heard Kevin Lavoni tell this story.
Yeah.
And it's told in a completely different context. It's like he came to his room. He asked him, what do I need to look, more like you, during the competition and everything. And he said, what I do is I drink vodka, I believe, beforehand. And but it wasn't.
That's the story. That's the story. That's the story.
Exactly.
He tells him that. He says, "Oh yeah." And then Ryan shows up the next day, and he's like dry, and he's hard, and blah blah blah.
Exactly.
But,
yeah.
Okay, that may be true.
I guess my thing is, did they interview Chad Nichols? Because Chad Nichols did an interview with Nick Trigili, and I think Chad probably would have said, that's not really what happened. I mean, Chad's got some really interesting.
I know that there isn't. I mean, I've done this with competitors before. If they're in the right condition, then you can give them a little bit of alcohol the night before, and it will definitely help dry you up a little bit if you're in the right state. But that wasn't the reason why he ended up doing well. And that
but I think it's kind of interesting that. I think it's kind of interesting they didn't have Chad on there. Though.
They may not. I don't know why they didn't, but I don't remember him. He certainly didn't talk if he was in it. But it was really. I don't think it was really focused on the documentary. Wasn't really focused on like the coaches or anything like that or the help. It was really kind of focused on really his struggle, how he sort of brought himself up from really a nobody to being Ronnie Coleman, the 8-time Mr. Olympia, and then of course his decline and his current condition today. The one thing that struck me, because we kind of sometimes you kind of see these kinds of things, and I think everybody in the industry kind of feels kind of sad a little bit that this man who was at the pinnacle, at the top of the sport of physicality, just now almost seems decrepit in some ways, and they kind of see that sad. But when you see this, that sadness, that kind of sense of sadness for him left me because this is a guy who I just have ultimate respect for, and he really does truly have a heart of a champion in my opinion. This guy he's joyful. Even though he says he's in a pain level of a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 every day, he's walking around with 9 or 10 almost every day, and he still goes and trains. He does all the stuff that he normally does. Runs his company, helps with his kids. He's got lots of kids. And it's just
he's got a lot of kids.
It's amazing. He's an amazing person. He really, yeah, I know. He really is truly. He's like Victor Martinez, man. He's like these guys have got lots of kids.
Oh yeah, They need to. I'm glad that Ronnie stopped. But no, I mean, I will say that I met Ronnie at a not at the bodybuilding competition, but I actually met him at Dallas Airport.
Oh.
I happened to be in the airport, and I saw this guy who was a little taller than me walking around with this bag, like this rollaway bag. And he was walking kind of gingerly, and I was on the phone with a good friend of mine who is a bodybuilder, and I said, you're going to find this funny, but I think Ronnie Coleman just walked by me. And he goes, you're kidding me. And I said, yeah, I think that might be Ronnie Coleman, but he's really short. And I thought he was taller. And he goes, well, if you think it's Ronnie Coleman, go up to him. So I went up to Ronnie and I said, Mr. Coleman. And he goes, yes. And I said, you're Ronnie Coleman, right? And he goes, yes. He goes, oh my God, I'm surprised anybody knew who I was. And he was like the coolest guy. He was like, thank you for knowing who I am. And I'm like, what? You're thanking me for knowing who you are? I'm like, I'm actually thanking you for shaking my hand. So it was really pretty cool. And he was extremely like humble. But I mean, he's like one of the two people that when I met him, I was surprised. One, because of how humble Ronnie was. But the other person that I'm surprised that I met recently because of you is Sean Ray. Because I think Sean Ray takes a lot of hits, for, first commentary and everything like that. And I was surprised that he was really a really nice guy, just a straight shooter, and and really like engaging to talk to. So I was really surprised by that.
Well, I think people mistake Sean. Sometimes they mistake his curtness, his willingness to give you his honest opinion for because he's not going to candy coat it. He's not going to coat anybody's egos, stroke anyone's egos here very much. And so they mistake that for him being sort of an asshole or him being whatever. And I just, to me, I've always been good friends with Sean for many years, and I've always respected him for that. While he and I are cut from very different stones, he definitely, I do think that I do admire that part of him, that he's always willing to tell you like it is, to give you his honest opinion. Some people can take that and some people can't. The people who can't, they're the ones who usually need their egos a little bit cushioned. Sometimes they have a hard time with, they're easily offended. And a lot of athletes are easily offended because this is a sport of aesthetics, and it's a sport of where people get involved with the sport to develop their bodies, to feel better about themselves. That's why I did it. And when the consensus out there is that you didn't win, or you didn't look good enough, or whatever, or you have some flaw that you have to bring up, or whatever it is, they take that offensively. And when in reality, every time I've ever heard Sean be critical of anybody, it's always been. Now he's stepped out of line a couple of times, but most of the time I've heard him be critical of other bodybuilders. It's purely something that can be taken in a very constructive way if the athlete really wanted to, and they could look at it and go, okay, I can use this to improve. You can't improve when somebody tells you you're awesome, but you can improve when somebody tells you that you got this to move up or whatever. So he's like that. Ronnie, the first time I met him was in Seattle, and he was in the bathroom. We were going to the bathroom, and he was guest posing there, and I was there. I think I competed at the Emerald Cup that year, or no, I had people on the show. I believe it was. No, I did compete that year. I think it was like a long time ago, like 2004 or 2006. I can't remember. But he was in the bathroom there, and he was just about ending his prime career a couple years before that, or after that, I mean. And he was big. And I remember looking over like, oh my God, there's Ronnie Coleman. So I walked up to him. It was the first time I'd met him in person. I said, hey, you're Ronnie Coleman. He says, yeah. And I said, it's nice to meet you. My name's Tad, blah, blah, blah. I introduced myself. I said, and I told him how much I looked up to him. And he opens his mouth, he starts to speak. And I did not realize at the time how light that voice is. And I couldn't.
Yeah.
He was this massive dude. So he was like, I remember looking at him. He had this big, gigantic sweatshirt on. And he filled it out, of course. He was like 300 and something pounds. And he had the spandex on like he always wore with his boots. And you could see the striations and the vascularity through his damn spandex. I was like, crap. this dude he's awesome. So he was pretty amazing. He was pretty amazing. But I really liked him. I thought he was a cool guy. I haven't really I don't really know him that well, but he struck me as a very genuine and authentic guy, and I like that about people.
I think the one thing that Sean and Ronnie have in common is the fact that they work hard. They outwork most people. I mean, because they have a great work ethic, because, even talking to Sean, at the table and everything, he was talking about all the stuff that he has to do. I mean, it doesn't seem like the man actually sleeps.
Right.
I mean, he's a hustler. And so is Ronnie. I mean, even to this day, Ronnie will get on. I mean, Ronnie might not be able to walk again, but I guarantee you, he'll get in a wheelchair and get on a plane.
Oh, he's intended. Watch that documentary. He intends to be more functional than people think. He actually can walk. He just has to use his crutches from if he's going long distances, and he's getting better and better and better. So it's just a nerve issue in his back that's causing pain, and it causes him his inability to be able to walk right. So, but you're right. I mean, he has got the determination of what made him a champion. I think that we all choose this stuff, and like we in some ways. I mean, obviously, sometimes we don't choose specifically, but I think that he's just the guy that is needed to be in the position that he's in, with the kind of challenges he's facing with his body today, to be able to have the kind of attitude and that he's got to be able to make it through this with flying colors. Like I do believe that in years to come, we'll see another story from him that highlights this aspect of him overcoming this obstacle. The first obstacle he overcame was his poverty and his willingness to want to be the best in bodybuilding. He did that. And then this next obstacle is really his own body, which is, and I think I think that we all, deep down inside, maybe he's just the guy that's built for that, and I don't know if that makes any sense.
If you get a chance, look up the Nick Trigili interview with Chad Nichols,
okay.
And he goes into that. He goes into how basically Ronnie, completely wills himself. He says he's never seen anybody be able to do that. He will do, he like transcends pain. And if something needs to be done, he will do it. And according to Chad, he never ever cheated on his diet.
No, I don't believe that at all. Yeah.
Never. According to Chad, I mean, I'm just telling you what Chad said. He's like, he did. They asked him. They said, did he cheat on his diet? He said no. So, but Chad said that other people cheated on his diet.
Oh,
but
yeah, sure.
Ronnie, he said Ronnie didn't cheat on his diet. So I was like, wow. I mean, but Ronnie, but he did say that Ronnie could put down some food. So his diet was a lot different than everybody else's. He was going into how Nasser's diet. I mean, the food that Nasser required to eat, that almost put me in diabetic coma right there, that he could eat that much. Well, but Chad Nichols' assessment of like the bodybuilders back then, especially Ronnie Coleman, is kind of interesting to listen to. But he says a lot of it was just the fact that he was willing to like have that sort of punishment on his body. And that if you ask Ronnie, hey, would you do it again? He'd be like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's like, he truly just loved it.
And that's
he just truly loved it.
And I say it again. That's the hallmark of a real successful champion. Is the reason why they do what they do, whether it be in business or in athletics or in a relationship. The reason why you do what you do is because you love doing it. And he says it in the documentary. I mean, it's in those words almost exactly. So kind of cool. It's very wonderful. If anybody gets a chance to watch this documentary, watch it. It's called Ronnie the King. I highly recommend that you watch it and pay close attention to some of those kinds of those aspects about his personality, because everybody wants to be a champion. And he used to say, everybody wants to be a champion, but nobody wants to lift heavy weights.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will watch that while I do my 45 minutes of cardio, and you have to watch the Chad Nichols. And then what we'll do is we'll do a review. And since both of us will be completely together on it because we would have both seen that, and then you also watch the Chris part 1 and part 2, and then tell me what you think about that as well, because I swear you will crack up. You'll call up Chris and say, I didn't know you were that funny. I know you know Chris really well and everything, but seriously, he goes into how he was crying like a little baby, and it was so funny to me because I actually saw it. We actually saw it, and he was just like, oh yeah, I was crying like a little baby.
I know. I walked up to Chris backstage. He's crying. I'm like, dude, are you okay, bro? He's like, I can't believe we did it.
I felt like writing in and saying, not only were you crying, but you were like rubbing the trophy like it was a dog or a cat.
It was like it was like his teddy bear. He was walking around. He was like holding it. Well, this concludes another episode from the Tad Lowe Show. I appreciate thank you. I appreciate you. Everybody tuning in, and I appreciate you, Nigel, for the discussion. Of course, we'll be back again next week. We're going to talk about this other stuff. We're going to keep putting together some interesting topics. I think next week we'll talk about some of these other shows, but I think I want to start to include some of these social topics each week as well. I really enjoy talking about them, especially the stuff that has to do with social justice and all that kind of stuff, if people want to hear it.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. See you later.